Hey everyone, I hope everybody's doing well, blessed, and enjoying family. As always, muchas gracias to all for everyone's words, wishes, prayers, as the love and support everyone shares and extends my way. From the heart, thank you. Also, do please like, share, subscribe, and hype the video. Gracias. Well, everyone, today's topic is going to touch on cricket from Hazard and an older homie from Southside Montebello. And it was one of them times, that I could sincerely say I felt for the homie. Bad, I wanted to butt in, on how he's getting done in circles, but nevertheless, allow me to make sense of it, right? Well, it was 2017, I can't remember the month, but it was up in the feds, you know, in there, like I mentioned before, there was a lot of camaradas, right? And there was quite a few Billys on the compound, right? And amongst these camaradas, there was an older homie, Rascal from Montebello, and he came around, but for some reason he was on the shine, right? And it wasn't one of them things where he had something coming or he was just on the shine, right? In other words, they were working him, however they were working him, right? And they don't tell, you don't ask type of thing, right? I hadn't really coming to terms with what was going on with the camarada till it leaned over towards Sana, right? And it wasn't really based on him, you know. It was based on his kid, little rascal or young. He was senior rascal, the jefe, right? That he was somewhere else in the system, in the feds, and he had made he had messed up, so he was pretty much ready to get hit. So the vato was, or should I say, the homie rascal on the yard with us. He was trying to plead for his kid, But the reason why he wasn't being heard, most of all, was because, as far as I heard, the homie on the streets was doing his thing, He was doing his thing, and yeah, he was showing respect to certain Phillies, but he was also withholding. It's this own thing that you mainly see it nowadays, right? But again, I seen it on this time that they feel they're entitled to pretty much what they want of what you're doing. You know, it ain't like the old days that it was as long as you're showing respect, you're able to wiggle right with your neighborhood. And then it went to a third, and then it went to cacique, which I want as much possible, and you can't tell me how much I could take of what you're sacrificing and doing on your own, type of thing. But it's why he wasn't considered no good or nothing like that. He was just sitting down, Basically, didn't have nothing coming. I guess his kids got busted with him though. They came into the system together, and wherever he was at, you know, younger generations were talking about the jefe and the kids. The jefe was there receiving or taking him being on the sidelines, right? It wasn't like he didn't speak to camaradas. It was just he wasn't allowed to do anything. If you guys get it, he was just there doing his time, right? and in case he was called for, age don't matter, right? But I guess his kid could not take that. He tried to get in good and basically started doing things with his neighborhood with cricket. I disculpen. When I went to East LA, it was when I was very young. I don't know the distance from Montebello to Hazard per se, but for them or for cricket to feel entitled, he had it coming from his neighborhood, right? Nevertheless, Little Rascal, he did what you see a lot of now, right? A lot of empty promises, a lot of he said, she said stuff, and I'll get this done, and I'll wiggle this, and unfortunately, like I stated before in back episodes, we don't control our homies. We don't control our families. We're busted, and I'll tell you one thing. Barrio wise, there's very few that are gonna stay with you. Most of the ones that are on the street patting your back, chingon, and I love you, bro. And there's most of them are gonna walk off within your trial, and that's a fact. But then again, it goes with guy solo type of thing, right? And but a lot of people don't take that into consideration that you were at one point in a stage with your neighborhood, right, where you knew whatever with who you had it like that with, and it just it happened to me, It's hard to comprehend that they start fading out, right? I already had it well in my head, and it still, it stung on a personal tip, and it wasn't because my homies, you could say they completely forgot or nothing, but most of the ones my age, they either caught a same amount of time, grip of time, or they got taken out, or they're doing their family thing, which, you got to respect that. Just because you're doing time, you can't wish that upon your homeboy to sit down and be stuck either, But anyways, Little Rascal tried to get some things going, and it just fell in false promises. I don't know if it happened one, two times, and because it poked the curiosity of cricket, and you know, we were all once on the streets, right? And let's just be sincere. You don't like when you're on the street doing your thing. You might come out your pocket out of respect once, twice, but three, four, five times you're being asked to come out your pocket out of respect, and it's only you. Then it becomes like, damn, spread your hustle. I ain't the only one in the neighborhood. You know, of what I heard, that's kind of what happened here, right? With old man Rascal's son. So not only that, he had cricket put funds right for something good to come, and again, it just didn't come. People got fed up, and it's basically that. Spare your hustle. Dispensa. I did already once, twice for you, and it ain't gonna be me. I ain't gonna be stuck doing this. And to be honest, we all lose sight of that when we're busted. but it's just the bottom line how it is. You have family members that think the same. Getting back to old man Rascal right with us, he was trying to get that off his kid, right? And he was, well, when I heard he was utilizing Sana to get at cricket, however means they were using, that's their business, right? But there was conversation back and forth, right? And cricket was upset. Me personally, I was never on a jardín with cricket, or so I don't really know his get down, right? To say one way or another, but to be sincere, he was in his right. That's one thing a lot of people gotta learn. When you get busted, boca callada is your best bet. You gotta keep your mouth shut. If you're able to do something, do it. Do it, and once you have it done, then go about it the right ways. For example, hey, I'm able to hit. I hit a pedazo, two pedazos. Hey, I want to show some love to you. Ahí te va, you know. But once you have it in your hands, because the one thing that all camaradas, including myself, forget is that it becomes a respect thing, and showing love to them to a mandatory thing where you're stuck with it, at least when it comes to members, right? To Billies. And unfortunately, this wasn't the case because the homie felt the throat around his neck from the beginning because of they were on the street once doing things and they weren't doing it the way they were supposed to, right? Well, they weren't doing it according to Tecato's rules and regulations, right? Which is, hey, I don't want your respects. I don't want a third. I want as much as I say I want, you know. If I leave enough for you to restock up for yourself, for your family, that's your pedo. I worry about myself. You know, everything's inside. To make a long story short, old man Rascal had a lot more pull in his neighborhood. I'll leave it like that, right? And he was able to fix things, but the homie, man, how do I say it? The homie risked it a lot. We're talking about pedazos tras pedazos, and they were just giving up, you know, to Sana, in the sense that Sana would get rid of them and hit Cricket with whatever he was hitting him with on Rascal's behalf. And it went on for a while, Again, we're talking about 2017 up until the point Rascal got moved in 2018. Before I got out, he was still doing it for free. We're not talking about a third, a fourth, half, todo, everything to clear his son's name. And as I seen it, I was like, okay, homie should have worked out a deal with a prize. Hey, well, how much are you gonna want? And I meet that price, and I stufas. But and again, he was on the sit down mode, so he was trying to get in good. So again, it goes back to what I always say. You got to stay relevant. It's about what you can bring, right? It ain't about what you done, what gets you busted, how much work you could put. Nah, it's about you staying relevant with that vitamina, and with that queso, with money. And anyways, Like I stated, I felt bad for the homie because he was older, right? And he was still doing it. And my thought was like, man, I can imagine if he meets his mark and all of a sudden Sana's going to send us to whack him. Me personally, this was one homie I didn't want to hit, on the real, because I hadn't felt, excuse me, like he had done something wrong, right? Because even though I was following the program, how it was dictated to the dot, I felt it was just right, that neighborhoods should be allowed to show their respects the way they want to show their respects, not become a mandatory thing and then, eventually come to prison and then be on the shine by your own gente. Not because you didn't do the things, because you didn't do them to their liking. You know, it's something I didn't agree with, right? Of course, I kept my mouth shut as I should, right? As a sureño, but I didn't agree with it. But you starting to see it a lot, At least I started to see it a lot more in the feds, right? And maybe it's because the pilis were walking with the camaradas. That's why I didn't see it in the state, but it didn't happen like that. That's one thing I gotta give Sana, right? He honored it to the point where when homie left, he said, just do, your debt's clear. When you get to where you get, tell him cricket and I, boom, 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 boom. Send him a bill to your son to stay out of politics, this and that. He has no permission. That's one thing they stopped him from, being amongst the politics or hitting on the yard, or that was it. They were to do their time and get out, which is it should have been feelings with them, right? But again, you had the son that he pushed some buttons, and as I heard, he got crossed up with Weddle Shy, and Weddle Shy was just one of them individuals that did not let it go. He heard he had antiquity already for doing it. He heard, I'm sure, the whole cha-cha, how he got let off by the dad that came through in this, and Waterside had the son whacked and removed, you know, and it's just one of them heartaches, right, that I speak about. This is just a lean look on them heartaches, right, on how the dad went through the struggles, on the streets. He was doing everything correct. He was hitting, he wasn't forgetting about los señores, right? Ahí te va. The only thing is he lied, though. For example, what he was shooting, it was for him hitting, let's just say, a couple pounds when he wasn't, right? He never said anything about moving toys either. And when he got caught, it was in their case. So, of course, they felt disrespected. So, Side did what he did, and that's the easiest things for them, which is to take their career. But again, this is just a little in look of the struggles that you go on in the system, right? Being a dad, being a son, you have to know, and you're gonna have to come to terms that everything you're fighting for on the streets, it's gonna move on without you. Think about it. Your neighborhood, unfortunately, family, and then inside, it's just never gonna be enough. Again, if you're in time to do something with yourself, do it. At least I'll speak of me. Don't be like this idiot myself, right? Always, and I'm not gonna say I regret it, right? But it was always neighborhood time, putting in time up into the point where I got stuck with double life and everything. And then even after I got a chance to get out, I still said dispuesto, and I came out of Mexico to support because in reality, let's just be honest, I did what I did and I knew how to do what I do, but I was being utilized because I was such a wreck family member. You know, it's how Tecatos minds work. And that's all a quick insight on how they perceive things. Again, I'll say it, and I don't mean no disrespect to any neighborhoods, but now every neighborhood's being pumped. It went from I'm gonna put my neighborhood in the right ears. I'm gonna put my neighborhood uplift my neighborhood, represent it, to you allowing some individual from across town or whatever to punk your whole neighborhood. You know, again, if you're there, more power to you. Keep pushing. Vámonos till you get out. The objective of the game is to get out the way you go in. Unfortunately, there's a lot of good people that type of mentality is gonna put on the wrong side, right? So stay true, Sean. Be smart. Stay true to yourself and loyal to your loved ones.